Welcome to coverage of GP Atlanta. Maria Bartholdi here in the booth with Marshall Sutcliffe. It's the quarterfinals, Chris Fennell versus Noah Walker. And the players are underway. Chris,
sleeveless here for Fennell.
No fear. Narnum Cobra is the play.
He plays literally the worst card in his deck on turn 2.
Thriving Rats for Noah.
Chris Fennell is not playing green.
No.
He's just running a Narnum Cobra as a 2-drop. Things are going to get significantly better for him from there.
Yeah, we saw his draft earlier. If you're watching the stream, he drafted pretty great white-blue deck. He's going to get in there with the Cobra. Offering the trade with those rats. We'll see if Noah's interested.
I think he won't be. I think Chris Fennell would be very excited if that trade happened. Because looking at Chris's mana base, Noah has to be like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, is that thing ever getting activated?
Yeah, they're having a little chat down there. Revoke privileges. Yep, so Noah did just take the hit. His rats will not be attacking.
Does leave him with 2 energy in case he has something to do with it later.
Well, he's going to live fast, gain 2 energy.
Make it 4.
Lose 2 life, yeah. Draw 2 cards. If I'm Noah, I don't know about you, Marshall. I'm pretty happy that my rats just got their privileges revoked.
I kind of am too, to be honest. You know, that's not one of his high impact plays. It's a good card, but it's nothing amazing. And you know, Noah just drew a couple of cards. You got to figure that he's going to be able to find more. This is where, you know, I think you do just put the counter again on the Propeller Pioneer. It looks like he's not going to do that, but you know, if you're trying to race, which it looks like what Chris Fennell's trying to do by using those revoke, you do want that extra 1 power in the air if you can get it.
Back to Noah.
It's pretty likely that Noah plays just something on the ground that's just going to trump the servo anyway. And there it is.
There it is. You love this card, Marshall.
I do. Oval Chase Daredevil is an early front runner for a card I'm really interested in picking up in a draft.
Chris just picked up a Cloud Blazer. He's going to get in there with a Propeller Pioneer. There we go. Gain 2 life, draw 2 cards.
All right, you get a little bit better look at what Chris Fennell's doing here. He started off with the Narnum Cobra of all things, but now he's doing what his deck's really all about.
Noah down to 12. It's a bit of a scary thing to face down, even just 4 power in the air. All right, so the Cobra can't block. Renegade Tactics. It's going to draw a card. In comes the Oval Chase Daredevil.
Noah offering trades for the Cloud Blazer. He should know that the blue-white deck is interested in returning that Cloud Blazer to hand or blinking it. Ooh.
What's better than 1 Oval Chase Daredevil?
Double trouble.
They certainly represent a lot of power.
Yeah,
if unchecked.
Big hits. That is definitely something that Fennell did not want to see, was, you know, just big, high-powered, easy-to-get-back creatures on the ground are pretty annoying when he's looking to try to block and keep the way clear in the air. Ooh, big attack here from Fennell.
Wow.
Oh, he's left a servo behind.
Daredevil trades off happily for the Cobra.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. You know, because if Noah has a way to get back his Daredevil, he's pretty happy to just trade it off for basically any card he can.
Glint Sleeve Artisan, the follow-up play for Christopher. Deciding what he wants to do with Fabricate here. Make another servo.
That makes sense.
Still 3 mana left to work with.
Noah's down to 8.
Passes back.
Just 2 more turns in the air for Fennell, and he can finish off Noah Walker.
Tapping 2 for Doomed Operative.
And he's passed the turn back to Chris.
It's just a 2-2. Yeah, he's really would like to see something like a furious reprisal here.
Oh, that would be insane.
Yeah.
He'll settle for a Welding Sparks or something along those lines if that's what he has. Chandra's Pyrohelix would be decent. Just take down one of these flyers, and all of a sudden that opens up the clock by double.
Yeah, it does. See if he has a response. Doomed Operative blocking the Glint Sleeve Artisan. There it is, Marshall. You called it. Welding Sparks on the Cloud Blazer.
Yeah, this is risky business here for Noah Walker. He could have done this before. And if Chris Fennell had an acrobatic maneuver there, that would about be the game.
Oof. Ouch.
But he didn't.
No, it just takes 2.
Fennell, interestingly, has one in his pool. He did draft one. He's not playing it, though.
Aviary Mechanic.
Yeah, that was probably going to pick up the Cloud Blazer originally.
Yeah.
Now we get an idea maybe of why Fennell didn't put that +1/+1 counter on originally as well, is that he was planning on picking it up anyway with the mechanic. He may have had to change course in the middle of that line, and now we see it kind of coming to fruition at the end.
Ambitious Etherborn's going to bring a servo along with it for Noah. And Daredevil back to the hand. As the flavor text says, let me guess, you thought I was dead.
You thought I was dead.
Meanwhile, Chris just going to keep hitting in the air for 3 this time.
It's really important for Fennell. He was able to play a 3-power flyer after getting Noah down to 6. That means 2 turns, so Noah needs to find a removal spell, a way to gain life, or a way to kill Chris right now.
Taps 2. Giant Spectacle.
Yeah, this is the Noah Walker special right here.
Sure.
We saw him win a game in the draft with this card.
+2, +1 in Menace.
Yeah, this is very high risk, medium reward. Not a great Magic card, let's be honest about it. But
No.
it can have a big effect on a game by sneaking in a bunch of extra damage that your opponent may not have anticipated, thanks to Menace and the extra power.
Here's where we find out if he does indeed have a spell in hand that can deal with that Propeller Pioneer. Red-Black certainly has the tools to do so.
Absolutely. Walker's all the way down to 3.
Yeah. See a Fragmentize on the servo.
That's pretty important because it gives him a lethal attacker in the sky, which he already had.
Yep.
But it leaves only 1 blocker back.
He did have a way to deal with it. Unlicensed Disintegration.
Kaboom. Also, Chris gets to find this out now because Noah's doing it in response while he still controls the servo to get in for 3 extra damage. This is going to put Noah to 1.
1. Passes back.
Can he get in for 9? He's got 6 in the hand here. Oh, this is a close
Built
one.
to smash would do it.
It would.
Oh, he's flicking those cards around so fast.
He also could just play a creature.
He's going to attack.
Oh,
Malphus
this is a
Squad.
huge one.
Servo. Back comes the Oval Chase Daredevil.
This is the turn. Fennell just needs to get one of these creatures out of the way temporarily.
Ooh. That was an interesting decision for him to attack with the Etherborn there.
Yeah, he put him on a 1-turn clock here, and he has 2 blockers. He figured, let's do it. He knows the risk he's taking, but it makes sense to take it because if he just sits there, he's going to die anyway. So, boom.
Malphus Squad notably also has Menace. Just going to take a look.
Oh,
Yep.
This is good news for Noah Walker.
Sure is.
In professional Magic circles, this usually precludes a concession of some sort. And what it is usually it's your opponent making sure that they had a good idea of what cards you had and had played in your library. That way they can maybe make better decisions when it comes to sideboarding.
Noah's going to block both of those servos.
Yeah, he figured it out.
Eddie Trail Hawk for Chris.
That's not good enough.
2 energy.
All Noah has to do is turn his card sideways.
There it is. Noah takes game 1 here against Chris Fennell.
Fennell's not happy with that. You know what's crazy?
What?
If he would have put that +1/+1 counter on the Propeller Pioneer way back on that early
He
turn,
would have won.
he would have won that game. Yeah, that's how close it was.
Tiny decisions like that, Marshall, can make or break a game.
It's hard to say, right? Because, like,
it is.
You know, the little servo that he had did some work for him. Maybe got it in. Maybe prevented an attack from Noah. Who knows, right? You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself. But these little tiny decisions, little tiny, have big ripple effects on the rest of the game one way or the other.
All right, let's peek in here at Carlos Ramao versus Thean Nguyen. We can see that Carlos did, in fact, add a planes to his deck, Marshall.
Okay. I'm going to actually grab the deck list from Ramao here,
Sure.
Maria, and see if I can see how many different colors he ended up playing. Oh, Carlos.
Carlos has got a good suite of creatures down there on the battlefield. What?
He's playing 3 colors.
Is he really? Oh, actual what?
Yeah. So remember when we were talking about the Aetherborn Marauder and the Skywhaler shot as the cards that we were thinking maybe, but probably he'll just end up being green. Well, he's actually splashing for both.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
How many plains and how many swamps?
3 of each.
Okay.
And he's got 11 forests in the deck.
How many attune with ethers?
So he drafted 1.
He did.
He's not playing it.
Okay. Carlos, your ways are a mystery to me.
Yeah, he has
but I'm not in the top 8.
He has no Wild Wanderers. He does have that 1 Blooming Marsh in there as well.
Oh, that's true.
So that helps with the black. So he's got 4 black sources there. He did not end up playing that Aetherworks Marvel. I'm not really surprised at that, though.
Yeah, he's currently got an Arborback Stomper, Sage of Shayla's Claim, Long Tusk Cub, and Servant of the Conduit in play.
Yeah, Servant of the Conduit, of course, is the other way that he can fix his mana.
3 energy.
We got to get those creatures moved up front.
Meanwhile, Thean Nguyen playing red-white. Cards like Trusty Companion down there on the battlefield, Salivating Gremlins, Consul Shield Guard, Eager Construct, Veteran Motorist in his graveyard, one of the staple cards of the red-white archetype. There we go. Here's blocks lined up by Carlos. Built to last from Nguyen.
I think it was an impeccable timing.
Oh, was it? Yes, it was, in fact. Thank you, Marshall.
Which is kind of rough because he still has to get 2 for 1 on himself.
Yeah.
Right? He needed to have his 3/4 crash in and the 3 damage just to get rid of the Stomper.
Riparian Tiger.
Boosh.
That's Servant of the
Conduit. That thing just trumps the board. I mean, look at that.
Yeah,
it's
it does.
Just simply bigger.
Eager Construct coming in. Very
There's your
suspicious.
Smash.
There it is. All right, we're going to head back to our first table. Chris Fennell versus Noah Walker. Noah up a game. Chris with an Eddie Trail Hawk in play. And underhanded designs from Noah.
This could be a good start for Noah, or it could be a slow start for Noah, depending on how Chris can capitalize on it. If he just gets a bunch of flyers up in the air.
Fragmentize.
Well, that works too.
Eddie Trail Hawk gets in there for 1.
Nice Fragmentize there from Fennell.
Foundry Screecher from Noah. The Hawk will crash in, followed up by a Propeller Pioneer. Oh, see what he does.
This time it makes more sense to make the servo because he's already facing down a flyer. So if it's going to trade, it's going to trade whether it has the +1/+1 counter or not. Even if the Screecher sees an artifact or not, it's still enough to trade for the 3/2 Propeller Pioneer. So he's just going to make a servo instead.
He's holding a revoke privileges, is Chris.
Yeah, he's really in the tank here about if he should trade off or not.
Yep, he's going to take it. Oval Chase Daredevil, the play from Noah. We saw that card come back a number of times last game.
Yeah, he went for the trade there.
Its privileges are currently revoked.
Yeah, that's a really nice card against that. It's hard to get that thing in the graveyard on your own. There's not a lot of sacrifice outlets in this set. They're rare. So revoke is probably going to keep the Oval Chase Daredevil just stuck. And bad news for Noah Walker. The Eager Construct lets them both scry.
Right.
And Chris immediately put his card back on top. He's like, keep it, love it, never let it go.
Oh, never
pump faked
mind.
him. And that actually is the proper procedure there as well.
Is
Noah
it?
has to decide first.
Okay.
He's the active player. So that was Chris just looking at the card and then waiting for Noah and then making his decision, which is the way he should do it.
Eddie Trail Hawk comes in again. Cloud Blazer from Chris.
Bang.
Draw 2 cards, gain 2 life. Get a 2/2 flyer.
Make one commentator very jealous. All printed on there somewhere.
Very tiny text down on the bottom.
Yeah.
Eager Construct, still enough to get in there.
Yeah, eager indeed.
Noah taps 4. Malphus Squad. Getting a counter this time.
Okay, he's going to make 4/2 with Menace. It's been a real slugfest, this match.
It really has.
I've really enjoyed watching it.
Look, it's a long day here at the GP. You got to get your food when you
I'm
can.
kind of just bummed that he's not sharing with us.
Chris attacking for 3 in the air.
What do you think he's eating? Bonbons?
Ooh, that would be nice. Glint Sleeve Artisan the play. There was some popcorn here at the venue earlier.
Oh, I'm aware.
Bringing along a Servo and an Arnhem Cobra. As we mentioned earlier, Chris cannot activate that card in his deck.
No, it's just filler for him. It's just, he basically just needed a 2-drop is what I'm assuming. I didn't actually watch him lay out his deck, but that's why you'd see a card like that in this deck. He just did it for curve purposes.
Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot. Noah will draw a card. And pass the turn back.
He really wants to get in there with the Malphus Squad, but doesn't look good.
No, those servos line up pretty good blocks against it.
Exactly.
Another Fragmentize.
Jeez, he's just kind of mowing everything down. I wonder if he had that in his hand at the beginning of the game. We saw him immediately snap off underhanded designs with it.
Oh, absolutely.
I like this attack
Here
from
we
Chris
come.
a lot. He is perfectly willing to throw away a servo to get in for 8 damage if that's what Noah wants to do. He'll also trade off basically any of these ground creatures for the Malphus Squad as well. Chris went undefeated in day 1 with a pretty ragtag deck. He said he gave it about a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10.
Oh, really?
It was medium. Yeah, it's kind of his specialty. I teased him about it because he does that so often. Just pieces together kind of junky limited decks, but just runs them up into undefeated days. It really is his specialty.
Welding Sparks from Noah will take down Cloud Blazer. And a Servo Exhibition from Chris will create 2 more servos. Yeah, Noah's got to live fast here. Draw some cards.
Yeah, he might be doing the other half of that card pretty quickly.
Marshall, of course, referring to Dai Young.
And he had just
Yes.
done that.
Chris takes that game, tying things up 1-1 here in the quarterfinals. Whew, we're going to get a game 3.
Game 1 was pretty close, and that one looked close for a short while, but then it kind of turned in Chris's favor, and he never really looked back.
Yeah, if you have some flyers that are being left unchecked.
Yeah, and it's hard because, Noah needed specific cards there, and instead he was playing cards like Live Fast, which take up your mana, lower your life total, and often don't find you what you need because you've used up so much of your mana. When you're under a lot of pressure, it's more of a desperation act than anything.
We can see Revoke Privileges in Christopher's deck, too, really doing work kind of in more ways than one on that Oval Chase Daredevil.
Yeah, that's a really clean answer to it. It's cheaper. It completely locks it up so that it can't do anything, and it keeps that recursion loop from happening for Noah.
Both players seem to be having a good time here in the top 8, and why not? Top 8 of a GP. Which side of the table would you rather be on in this matchup, Marshall?
It seems very close to me.
Yeah, it does, actually.
Both of the games have had things go right for both players, but from what I've seen from Chris's deck, I think I prefer his. I just think the late game's a little bit better than what Noah's doing, even though Noah's is good. It really is good.
Yeah, Noah's deck, from the looks of it, doing exactly what what that color pair wants to be doing. Playing some artifacts, playing some aggressive creatures, Oval Chase Daredevil, getting itself back from the graveyard when you play artifacts.
Right. One of the interesting cards I see in Noah's deck, I'm curious if he has left it in post-board, is Fretwork Colony.
Oh.
Yeah, which is a really nice little 2-drop. It gets a +1/+1 counter on your upkeep also. You lose a life. Downside is that it can't block. Starts out as a 1/1. But the interesting thing is that it scales fairly well as the game goes on. The reason why I'm asking if he'd put it in or not is because if it gets its privileges revoked,
it's pretty bad.
It's awkward.
Thriving Grubs already on the table for Noah Walker.
And really, blue-white is the nightmare matchup for Fretwork Colony. Because
it is.
Even if they don't revoke its privileges, it can get malfunctioned, or it can get bounced after, right when it starts to really become relevant.
Follow-up play Foundry Screecher. Those Grubs already have a counter. Nice aggressive little curve from Noah. 2-drop into 3-drop.
Yeah, very solid. He's already hit for 3, and he's on the play.
Glint Sleeve Artisan will make a servo. Here we see a Weldfast Monitor and an attack from Noah.
You can see why Noah would want to attack here. The Weldfast Monitor can get Menace.
Yes.
And that card gets better and better the fewer cards that your opponent has. So if the Grubs end up trading off for the Glint Sleeve Artisan, fair enough.
Yep.
And now Chris needs to play something else, and then maybe even just to get a double block on the Weldfast Monitor. Though we do see that Noah has missed his land drop for the turn, Maria.
Yes, he has. Played that Monitor pre-combat as well to pump up his bat.
Indeed.
Cultivator's Caravan.
Okay, that's pretty good.
The play from Chris. Can tap for mana. Enough to cast that Aviary Mechanic.
Yeah.
Any color. 5/5 as well. Crew 3. Not too shabby.
It's a big turn here for Noah. I think he's just going to Welding Sparks away the mechanic and just go for the throat here.
Yeah, here he comes.
Yeah, the thing is, he would have loved to have tried to set up a 2-for-1 with that. If he had an additional land, he could have given his Monitor Menace, attacked with both. If Chris goes for the double block, then he can Welding Sparks and he gets to kill the servo for free. But he didn't hit his land, so he just decided to get aggressive, knock out the 2/2, and get in that attack.
Cloud Blazer for Chris.
Oh, geez.
Puts him back up to 10s.
This could be where things start going wrong. Well, maybe I spoke too soon.
Unlicensed Disintegration here.
and you're going to see a 5/5 get equipped up.
Yep.
Now, if Noah still doesn't have a land. Man, he just missed 3 damage again because of this land. Wow. Smart play from Fennell, taking advantage of Noah Walker's mana issues. Noah's trying his absolute hardest to close this game out as soon as possible and not let Chris stabilize.
Yeah, Chris has got to deal with that Foundry Screecher, though. I think I see an Ether Tradewinds in his hand. Perhaps a Tezzeret's Ambition. Currently not enough to crew the Cultivator's Caravan in play for Chris. Taps 3. Thinking about it. Fabrication module. Passes the turn back. Let's see if Noah's found his land.
Hasn't needed it much, though. If he would have found it last turn, he could have got in for an additional 3 damage. A pretty big deal when you're talking about having a lethal flyer here.
Yeah, he's going to give it Menace, and I think we're going to see some trade wins happening, potentially.
Yeah, Chris really has to.
Because he currently can't block something with Menace.
Screecher and the Monitor kind of best friends for life here.
Yeah. They each have one half of the necklace.
Right.
Maybe he's considering which to return.
Definitely.
If Noah doesn't have another land, can't replay it. But Chris Fennell really up against it here.
Yeah, this is a critical juncture in this match. We're in game 3. And Fennell absolutely has to.
Look at him.
Like you said, if Noah doesn't have an additional land in hand and nothing else to do, Fennell will be at 1. And he will be at 1. He has to take the 3 damage here either way. And that means he's going to have to play the Ether Tradewinds out ahead of time. He's going to pick up the module. And I guess you just bounce the Screecher, since at least there's the dream of blocking the Monitor, where if he doesn't have a flyer, the Screecher, especially if Noah has another land, will just kill him.
He's going to bounce the Screecher. And he has another land.
So important, by the way, about when to play your lands in certain junctures of the game.
Yes, it is.
Now, it didn't really matter there because Chris needed to bounce one or the other, but the fact that Noah hadn't played a land could have been super important to Chris's decision. Again, in this case, it was just he either has it or he doesn't. But
right.
That was information that Chris, was really trying to parse through. Well, what if he misses his land drop? I think we're going to see Noah win this thing.
Yeah, 2 threats on the table.
And he's going to need something really impressive. That's not it.
Okay. Tezzeret's Ambition. Draw 3. He left up a Plains. Cultivator's Caravan, of course, though, can tap for any color of mana.
I just don't think there's anything you can find.
Yeah, there's nothing he can do there. Noah Walker takes it here in the quarterfinals, 2-1. Congratulations to Noah Walker.
Noah's playing these aggro decks real well today.
Yes, he is.
And he's jamming.
All right, we're going to take a look at this match here between Cash Turner and Matt Frank. Cash currently up a game. Some celebration going on in our feature match area there for Noah.
So it looks like Matt, you can see he's blue-white.
Cash Turner appears to be white-black.
He's got an Aether Squall Ancient in his
does
deck.
he?
Yeah, he does. And 3 Thriving Turtle. Ooh, and a Torrential Gearhulk.
Ooh, spicy.
Oh, yeah.
Rush of Vitality here for Cash. We can currently see he's got a Herald of the Fair in play as well as an Aviary Mechanic. Wearing some goggles, as you should as a mechanic.
You said it earlier today, safety first.
Indeed.
Yeah, just black-green here for Cash. Or excuse me, black-white for
Okay.
Cash. Seeing if he's got any big bombs in the deck here. Well,
Matt Franks figuring out what to do. He doesn't seems to have a malfunction. He's going to play a Propeller Pioneer, though. Pass the turn back after making a servo.
well, he's got a Kambal Console of Allocation.
Okay.
It's probably his best card.
Here come his 2 creatures. Trades. Servo jumps in front of the mechanic. Just 3 land to work with for Cash.
By the way, Cash up a game here.
Glint Sleeve Artisan is the play. Decides to give it a counter.
Cash doing a lot of work this game with only 3 lands. You see Matt's up to 5. Now
Yeah.
make it 6. He's got double the lands that Cash has. Should be a lot to work with.
Dakara Peafowl is the play for Matt, as well as a Thriving Turtle. Gets a couple of energy. Cash immediately draws a land and plays it. Iron League Steed, a 2/2 with haste, fabricate 1. Swing.
Good attacks. He's going to get in for 3 one way or another.
Matt lining up his blocks here. Turtle goes down.
Matt taking his time there. I mean, Cash is tapped out. Had already played a land.
Yeah, like you said, Marshall, he's got more lands than Cash, but Cash's board presence looking a little better right now.
Yeah, interesting. You know, the decision there was, do I chump block with my turtle? And he decided to. He's going to malfunction the steed.
Pass the turn back. Snarethopter the draw for Cash. Also holding a Propeller Pioneer and a Visionary Augmenter. Yeah. Cash just turns this guy sideways.
Yeah, worked before.
Take 3.
Seeing a Propeller Pioneer down there?
Yep.
That's what I'm seeing too.
Looks like it's going to be the play. Trying to decide, I think, between that and the Visionary Augmenter right now.
They both have clean attacks. This is where you would almost certainly want to put the +1/+1 counter on the Propeller Pioneer once again.
Yeah, just to put down more pressure on Matt.
Exactly. That 1/1's going to have a tough time getting through, but the 3 power in the air can really matter.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, get some goggles.
Yeah. Yeah, he's still going to
Nice.
just make it a big flyer, but I did forget about the goggles being able to jump over. That might have changed the decision, but it looks like it didn't for Cash.
Back over to Matt. Just a P-foul in play at the moment.
It's pretty tough, Matt. We've been on this game for a few turns, and he just hasn't. He's just kind of yet to do anything impressive, Cash looks like he started out in the lead and has been riding that lead the whole time.
Yeah, Matt's had to throw away some creatures just for blocks.
Yeah.
Well, here we see a bomb. Saheeli's artistry.
Oh, wow. So he gets to copy a creature.
And an artifact.
And, of course, it can be an artifact creature that he copies as well. So he can have a Dukar, a P-foul, plus another one. He can also make a Glint Sleeve Artisan.
Looks like he wants to make a Propeller Pioneer.
Okay, make a Propeller Pioneer to block that one, and then he also could have a...
Is he copying the goggles?
I think he just wants a P-foul.
Copy the goggles.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, because he couldn't profitably block the Pioneer with the goggles on, so he's going to make his own.
He's going to make his own. I was hoping that Dukara P-foul could join the crew.
Yeah.
But I like this.
No fear from Cash.
No, he must have something.
Oh, they're just going to trade.
You still get to keep the goggles there. Let's make sure those get back on the battlefield. I don't know where they went. Somebody dropped their glasses. There
they are. Yeah, Saheeli's artistry. What a card.
It's a really good card, though. Is it actually going to get Matt Frank out of this mess?
He appears to still be in one. Here comes a Visionary Augmenter. Goggles, attach. Deciding whether or not to give it some counters or make some servos. What are you most inclined to do here?
I think I would prefer to make servos, generally speaking, in this spot, because that thing's already pretty big and can attack into the P-foul, and then you can just go so wide that like even a single blocker here from Matt won't matter at all. Where, if Matt does play something big-ish here, he will have stabilized the board.
Yeah.
And if you just go super wide, you can actually just build out a board to get him there. Oh, man.
Glassblowers Puzzle Knot.
Man, Matt's deck just does not seem to be cooperating with him very much here. He just needs some creatures to add to the board, and instead he's got a Puzzle Knot here.
Scry 2, get 2 energy. Not really where he wants to be right now. One on top, one on bottom.
Okay, well, that's
Not
good
sure
news
what that
for
was.
him. Oh, but wait, there's more. Okay.
Weldfast Wingsmith. Get some goggles.
Okay, that's pretty good. Now, this is a scenario that I just described where now Matt has played another big blocker, and Cash doesn't really have great attacks unless he has removal spell, pump spell, something like that.
That Wingsmith of 4/5 currently. Snare Thopter in hand for Cash. Matt cannot currently pay to give the P-foul flying.
Oh, Snare Thopter's big deal, though.
Yep. Once he can pay, that bird can block pretty well, but not this turn. Now he needs to think about how much he wants to send in.
Yeah, it's interesting. If Cash would have made the 2 servos, he actually would just be winning this turn. He gets in for 3 in the air. If he would attack with everything, he would get in for 3 in the air. The 2 creatures on the ground would have to get blocked. He would get in for 2 with the Aviary Mechanic, 2 with the servos. That's 4 plus 3 in the air is 7.
You're right.
Now, he's not swinging for lethal here, so Matt Frank will get another draw step. And remember, he did put a card on top of his library.
He did.
With that scry. So if it's a really good one, we might still have a game.
Cash currently up a game.
Believe that he may have double blocked the Visionary Augmenter here.
Yep.
Which makes sense.
1, 2. Down goes the P-foul.
Bad bird. Take 3. Yeah, let's not forget that, boys. All right.
Yeah, he doesn't want the Pewfile to have the option to block the Snare Thopter next turn.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Moving the goggles over onto it.
Things still looking very good for Cash here.
Wondering what card Matt put on top of his library.
Let me see if he has a Fumigate.
Yep, that's been the look for of the day. Too? Yes,
yeah.
it was.
He does not. Not in his deck.
Oh, he's going to scry 2 again.
Well, this is probably good news for Cash Turner that he's not just doing something amazing right off the bat.
Is it Confiscation Coup?
For next turn, that might help. If he has nothing here, he's dead. 3 creatures attack, including a lethal Snare Thopter in the air.
Here they come. Matt extends a hand. Cash Turner takes it 2-0 here in the quarterfinals. Cash headed to the semis. Wow.
So let's look at our bracket here, Maria.
Yeah.
So we had Noah Walker, Cash Turner. We'll find out about Carlos Morales versus Ten Win. And we'll find out about Geddes Cooper versus Ray Perez as well.
Wow. Great stuff here down in the feature match area for the quarterfinals here at GP Atlanta.
Ready to take your game to the next level and start on the path to the Pro Tour? Rise to the challenge and test your skills at a local preliminary Pro Tour qualifier. To find an event near you, visit magic.wizards.com/pptq. Kaladesh is now available on Magic Duels. Build endless deck combinations with more than 1,000 unique cards. Play through hours of story with 50 campaign missions. Play Magic Duels free today on Xbox One, Steam, iPad, and iPhone.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Tim Willoughby, joined by Hall of Famer Frank Carsten, and the players, well, there's only 4 of them left. They're shaping up to get ready for their semi-finals shortly enough. It's going to take them a minute or 2 to get seated, shuffled up, and so on. So just in the meantime, while we look to get forward to those matches, Frank, we've got a minute or 2 just to talk about the limited format in general. We've obviously been watching a lot of Kaladesh Limited, and I know you're one of the biggest students of the game. You really pay attention to everything that's going on. I've got a few kind of key questions for you to get a feel for exactly some of the things that we've learned across the weekend. And these are some fairly big questions, so I understand if we don't have a final answer just yet. But one big thing that a lot of people are looking for when it comes to any limited format is how quick is it? How fast would you say this format is? Do you want to be aggressive, or can you get away with maybe playing a slightly slower deck?
I would say it's both fast and slow, which is kind of a weird answer. So let me explain that. A large element of this limited format, from what I've seen so far, is the sizing of the 4-drops. Plenty of 4-drops trump all the cheaper creatures, right? A 4/4 is much bigger than a 2/3 or a 3/2. So because of that, I think you can have 2 kinds of games. Like either both players have some of these 4-drops, and you often get into kind of a board stall, where ultimately cards like flyers or modules, menacings, stuff like that are super important in order to get out, as well as high impact 5, 6, 7 drops. Sometimes, however, you have a game where only one of the players has one of these key 4-drops, or maybe one player has a Renegade Freighter on the play and starts attacking for a lot, or let's say 2-drop, 3-drop into removal spell, pump spell. Those games can still be over quite quickly. And I think we can see both kinds of games. So, strange as it may sound, could both be fast and slow, and basically your deck needs to have a way to win both types of games. You need both a plan for the late game, in case it comes down to that, as well as some early drops, so you can keep up in the early game. That said, ultimately draft is often a bit faster than sealed, so that's also an important element when it comes to speed.
I guess that kind of makes sense. And within that whole mix of sort of your bigger creatures at higher costs and so on, obviously vehicles, all of them are comparatively large for their cost, but they require crewing and so on.
Mhm.
How good are they in this format? It seems like a silly question. We've obviously seen a lot of play, but there's not, I mean, not every deck runs them. Are they worth running?
Yes, for sure. I think many decks will be happy to run, say, 1 or 2 good vehicles. If you run that number, then you will still be able to find enough pilots for it. The more expensive vehicles, especially the ones with high crew cost, are a bit more questionable. But I think every deck will be happy to run, say, some Renegade Freighters or the really good ones like Smuggler's Copter.
Okay, well, let's have a look at our top 8 bracket, because now that we've cut down from 8 to 4, let's see how the 4 decks that have made it into our top 4 actually shape up in terms of the the taxonomy we're talking about. So first up, we had Noah Walker defeating Chris Fennell. Now, Noah was on red-black, so he's definitely on the faster side of things.
Yeah, he was quite happy with his deck. Had multiple Oval Chase Daredevil, which is excellent in the red-black Artifacts Matters archetype. He felt that black was a bit underdrafted at the table. Even wheeled and underhanded designs, which he felt was one of the better black uncommons. So he was happy with that deck.
And then we've got Cash Turner. Cash is also on black, but he's black-white, and obviously his match was the last one to finish. So would it be fair to say that he's trying to play a slightly more controlling slow roll?
Likely. Black-white is often a bit more controlling. He wasn't too happy with the deck that he drafted, actually, he told me. But he does have some ways to break through in the late game. For instance, with Key to the City. That's a pretty powerful card.
Okay, then we have Carlos Ramal. Now, his deck, technically, depending on how you look at it, is kind of almost Abzan. It's green, it's got some black, it's got some white cards, but it's basically mono-green, right?
Yeah, he's splashing, I think, a single Sky Whaler shot and a single black creature, but green was open at the table, for sure. We saw that while Chris Fennell was drafting, and he has some standouts like Longtusk Cub that he was quite happy with. His creature base is awesome, as most heavy green decks are.
And finally, we have Raymond Perez Jr., former Rookie of the Year. What sort of deck is he on?
He's black-red, one of the many black-red drafters in the top 8, actually. He started his draft with first pack, a Midnight Oil, a card that yesterday he had in a seal deck, and then he left it out in his sideboard. But he was told by his teammates that it was pretty good after all, so he started boarding it in. He then discovered throughout the day what it actually did. At first he thought he had to remove a counter to actually draw a card, but no, it's an actual personal Howling Mine, no matter how many counters are on it. So he took it first pack, and was quite happy with that.
You can see just how happy he is there, just about to start his match against Carlos Ramal. But there are a couple of other things that just to think about in the format while we see these players just getting set up. I mean, we've seen that Carlos is almost a mono-green deck. How many colors should people be aiming at if they're sitting down to either build a sealed or to draft?
Generally speaking, it's a 2-color format. We've seen Matthias Hunt earlier on day 2 draft a mono-color deck, mono-red, but that's pretty rare, and there are not many payoffs for staying mono-color. 2 colors is the standard. You can splash if you're green in particular and have some fixers like Attune with Eater or Wild Wanderer, Prophetic Prism, Rare Lands, and you have some good splashable cards like Cloud Blazer. You can easily build a 3-color deck, but most of the time 2 colors is going to be the go-to.
Okay, and in terms of what the colors are going to be, obviously we're saying that we're aiming at about 2. Are there any particular color combinations that really stand out?
Well, for that, it's best to use the knowledge of draft master Marcio Carvalho, who won Grand Prix London over on the other side of the world.
Yeah, I shudder to think what his record right now is just in terms of drafts at top-level competitive events. He just doesn't seem to lose right now.
Yep. So in a coverage interview at the text page on dailymtg.com, you can find everything and more. He told us that he felt that blue-red was actually the worst color combination, with blue being the worst color. But white-black was one of the combinations that he liked quite a bit, because there was synergy between Fabricate creatures and all of the Artifact Matters cards, like Dunt Operative, in black. The same also holds for green-black. He was also happy to draft green-red or red-white, some good aggressive decks, but he told us to stay away from blue if possible. That said, there are so many awesome possibilities in this format. Throughout the day, we've seen, say, Sam Black and people like Ben White go really deep with multicolor energy decks. We've seen multiple people draft Panharmonicon. Ray Perez was one of them. He started his morning with a nice Panharmonicon deck. When you get enough enters the battlefield effects, you can easily build around that. And we've also seen plenty of crazy module decks. For instance, decks with like multiple decoction modules and multiple Ether Scroll Ancient. Those decks went 3-0 in over at Grand Prix London, I saw. So this is an excellent format with lots of awesome build-around stuff.
Okay, just to let you know, it looks like our players are just about ready to go. So we're going to head down to the feature match area. Are you ready, Frank?
Let's go.
All right, let's go and watch the semi-finals here at Grand Prix Atlanta. Welcome to this, the semi-finals here at Grand Prix Atlanta. Just 2 more rounds to go before we got our champion crowned. And you can see some smiling faces in the feature match area. Both Carlos Ramao and Raymond Perez Jr. pretty happy with the decks that they've got going on. That's a forest from Carlos Ramao. We're going to see plenty of them. His deck virtually mono green. Meanwhile, Raymond Perez, one of a few drafters in this top 8 who is on a red-black deck. No early plays from either player. This certainly concerning for the deck of Raymond Perez Jr. His is very much the aggressor, and Renegade Freighter coming down as the first non-land permanent, and that one from Carlos Ramao.
Yep. Yeah, Ray Perez will have trouble beating Carlos Ramao in the mid-game when the big green creatures from Carlos, like Riparian, Tiger, will come down. If the game goes really long, then Ray Perez may have an edge with cards like Whirler Maker or Midnight Oil. But, well, there we have another awesome mid-sized green creature, Bristling Hydra. 4/3. You get some energy, which you can use to give it a +1/+1 counter and hexproof to protect it from a removal spell. And it can also crew a train, which immediately falls to Harness Lightning, perhaps in response to the attack trigger.
Yeah, I mean, it looks to me like, while it's easy enough for Raymond Perez to remove something like a train, Harness Lightning doing a great job there, and still got energy left from that Thriving Rats, killing off that Hydra while there's energy around is going to be quite problematic, and there's a fair amount of energy production in Carlos Ramao's deck, so it's reasonable to think that you might see more than one activation of the ability on that Hydra.
That is certainly possible. Well, the best way to deal with the Hydra is to just block it. Bomat Bazaar Barge would be able to trade for the Bristling Hydra if Ray Perez can get 3 power to crew it. Well, a Thriving Rat's attacking, and there's a Night Market lookout. Some of the creatures in Ray Perez's deck are a bit scrappy, let's call them that. Night Market lookout, not a standout. His deck only has one vehicle in the Bomat Bazaar Barge. It does combo nicely with it, because whenever you tap the Night Market lookout to crew up the Bomat Bazaar Barge, you get a free drain, but still a 1/1 for 1, not really the best creature.
Thriving Rhino there, the play for Carlos Ramao, up to 5 energy now, and all of his creatures have useful things to do with that energy. Additionally, a little bit concerningly perhaps for Raymond, both of his creatures fairly well outclass the creatures that he's got going on his side of the board.
Yeah, well, the Bomat Bazaar Barge is going to be a nice blocker. Ooh.
Spark of creativity here. So paying 1 red mana for the sorcery, and he's going to exile the top card of his deck. He can, well, that's kind of the worst hit that he could have. He's not going to be able to deal any damage with the swamp that he's revealed, and I believe that he may have already played a land as well, which means that basically he's paid 1 mana. Oh, okay, he is able to play that land, but drawing a land that turn and not being able to kill off the creature, not ideal. I mean, it's good when you cast it where you've got plenty of extra mana available, because sometimes you say, actually, I'd rather just cast the spell of Exiled rather than use it to deal damage. This way round, well,
Well, ultimately it was 1 red mana, draw a card, kind of cycling it. That's not too bad. You get closer to your best cards.
And Wayward Giant with Menace there, 4/5, that is actually a fairly relevant threat on this board.
Yeah, at the moment, let's see. If Perez would crew up the Bowman Bazaar Barge and get in there, then he still has the Wayward Giant that can easily block the Thriving Rhino. It could also block the Bristling Hydra, in which case Carlos could turn it into to a 5/4 and trade by paying 3 energy, but that's also a fine exchange. So given that Ray Perez still has a decent blocker back, attacking with the Bowman Bazaar Barge seems reasonable. Oh wow, Ornamental Guidance. That is the perfect combat trick for the situation. Turns the Hydra into a 5/6, even untaps it. Couldn't be a better blocker for the Bowman Bazaar Barge.
Yeah, Ornamental Courage, actually 3 copies of it drafted by Carlos Romao, only the one of them being played in the main deck, but that one is now going to give Raymond Perez pause in each and every subsequent game that they play, because 1 mana combat tricks are exactly the kind that it's very easy to hold up mana for at any stage in the game.
Yep. Yeah, 1 mana to deal with a 4 mana card. That's always a nice tempo swing. Ray Perez also had to tap some creatures to animate the Bowman Bazaar Barge, so that's a nice exchange, but I don't know. Seems like Ray Perez is still kind of ahead in this game. He did not want to trade his Wayward Giant for Bristling Hydra and 3 energy. He's content with his board position as it stands.
And Girapur Guide there, the fresh play from Carlos Romao. It will mean that if he chooses to activate it, then he can make one of his creatures only be able to be blocked by larger creatures, and that basically at the moment means Wayward Giant, though an interesting addition here, a card that I hadn't really seen play until we saw Matthias Hunt with it earlier on, and that one being the Giant Spectacle, giving +2 power and Menace. +2/+1 and Menace there. Aura's a little bit risky, because if there's removal spells, you can kind of get 2 for 1. The green-black deck from Carlos Romao, not that heavily invested in removal. It just has massive creatures.
Yep, yeah, it's a 5/4 coming Carlos's way. Both have Menace. Carlos could line up a double block. Would be best on the Wayward Giant, because that one only has 4 power. Still a bit risky in the face of potential instant speed removal spells or pump spells. Well, there we have the Midnight Oil, the card that Ray Perez ultimately first picked after starting it in his sideboard in his sealed deck yesterday, then gradually learning what the card did, and after all that experience, well, he first picked it over here in the top 8. So
let's take people through what it does, because it is one of the more complicated cards in the set.
So at the beginning of your draw step, you always draw an additional card, no matter how many hour counters are on Midnight Oil, but you also remove some counters, and the counters basically indicate what your maximum hand size is. It starts at 7, the usual, because it starts at 7 counters, and then on the next turn, Ray Perez's max hand size will be 5, then 3, then 1, and then, well, 0 afterwards. There's also a clause that whenever you discard a card, so if Ray Perez would just draw lots of expensive cards and won't be able to get them out of his hand quickly enough, well, you lose 1 life for every card you have to discard.
I guess that with 6 lands in play and only 1 card in hand at the point that he casts Midnight Oil, he can be relatively confident that most of the time he's going to be able to cast multiple threats a turn from now on. And drawing 2 cards a turn, it's a big deal. It does mean that he's going to be able to deploy a lot of threats, keep the aggression going.
Yep. Yeah, it will give him a definite advantage in case the game goes long. If I'm Carlos here, then I have to plan ahead to try to win the game quickly, because you can't just like sit back and move into a board stall where Ray Perez leverages the extra cards from Midnight Oil. You have to be aggressive now, and that's what he does. All green creatures tapped and attacking into the red zone.
And this is not a lethal attack, but it's actually not that far off. It's going to mean that both players are on single digits, and actually Raymond Perez on pretty low single digits, given that he doesn't have much in the way of blockers here.
If Ray Perez doesn't block, then Carlos could potentially, if he wants, pump the Bristling Hydra, making it 5 power. He still has 3 energy remaining, but he can only present 11 power worth of attackers. Ray Perez could, of course, jump block with his Night Market Lookout. but chooses not to. Perhaps in the hope of setting up a lethal attack, a swing back on the next turn. But High Spire Artisan does provide Carlos Romao with 2 blockers. That's definitely relevant in the face of some menace creatures.
So you see Raymond Perez there, removing a couple of counters from the Midnight Oil. 5-hour counters left. His hand size is now 5, his maximum hand size. 3 cards in hand now. And on 3 life, he has a little bit of thinking to do about how he wants to play out the next turn or two. If he chooses to hold back, well, he's going to need a few extra blockers even then. But he does not quite have a lethal force here.
Yep. Yeah, there's also the ability on Gearper Guide, the green creature that Carlos has on the battlefield. For 3 mana, target creature you control can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less this turn. Could be relevant in case Ray Perez wants to keep back some small jump blockers, but actually just attacks with a Night Market lookout. Just to get the single point of drain in there.
Now, Ray has passed with all of his mana up, having only played a land for the turn. What sort of cards is Carlos Romao going to have to be thinking about here?
Well, there are a lot of good instant speed removal spells in red and black, such as Unlicensed Disintegration, Welding Sparks, Tidy Conclusion. But whether or not Ray Perez actually has one of those cards, that remains to be seen.
Riparian Tiger there, meaning that Carlos Romao now up to a full 5 energy. All of that energy relevant for a number of reasons.
I don't think Ray Perez could even have some of them, because if he had some removal spell, you could have removed one of Carlos's creatures and potentially set up a lethal attack with his menace monsters. So if I'm Carlos, I'm not too worried about all that open mana at the moment. What I am worried about is, well, just the creatures that Ray Perez can use to block. And you do have to keep, well, at least 2 blockers back in case something goes wrong and you need to block one of the menace creatures.
So Carlos going down to 3 energy to pump up his Thriving Rhino. It is now, well, just a massive monster. 4/5 coming alongside that Bristling Hydra and the Girapur Guide. Going to force some blocks here.
So that's a 4/5 Rhino being blocked by a 4/5 Wayward Giant. They would bounce. And now the 4/3 Bristling Hydra is being blocked by, that's, well, also 4 Toughness Rats. So they will trade.
And the 1 life that Raymond Perez Jr. gained by attacking with his lookout was pretty important, because he's on just 1 life now.
Yep.
Following those attacks.
Yeah, that Gear Per Guide still came in, and, well, it makes sense to just get the drain in there from the Night Market lookout, because it probably wasn't going to block thanks to the ability from Gear Per Guide. Did he draw something here? Because he needs to deal with the 3 attackers on Carlos' side. Now, if Ray Perez plays, say, 2 blockers or a blocker or a removal spell, then he could easily stabilize and potentially eventually take the game with the cards from Midnight Oil, but he needs 2 answers. Dayong, that's a start.
It removed the only creature that it actually could on the battlefield. No extra energy available for Raymond Perez, so he just had to go for the Girapur Guide. Couldn't go for anything larger. And there's our Prakata Club lookout, the bouncer there.
Yeah, but that's unlikely to be enough, because the Riparian Tiger, it's 4/4 Trample, Trample being the key ability here, and it can turn into a 6/6 with the energy that Carlos has available.
Another Riparian Tiger, some extra energy, that meaning that both the Thriving Rhino and the Riparian Tiger can use their abilities on attacks. And that's enough to have Raymond Perez scooping up his cards. Carlos Romao picking up the first game. Carlos Romao has not dropped a game so far in this top 8.
Well, he is the world champion back from 2002. He has been playing for a long time, hailing from Brazil. Carlos Romao is well respected as a strong player from that area, and a loud cheer erupted through the hall when it was announced that he was a member of the top 8 here. He definitely has some compatriots here who are stoked that he made it to the top 8 once again.
And actually, that's a fairly consistent trend from the Brazilian players. They are unabashed in their celebrations when their countrymen do well. And frankly, I love that moment at the Pro Tour. If there's ever a Brazilian player doing well, you can hear about it across the room.
For sure.
But we're jumping across to our other match here. Cash Turner already a game up against Noah Walker, and not looking in terrible shape here in game 2. His black-white deck, he's already got Glintsleeve Artisan with some Inventor's Goggles attacking in there, and Noah Walker not quite so much going on just yet.
Yeah, Noah Walker was happy with his deck. Cash Turner was not, but sometimes decks work out better than you might expect, or you just get good draws while opponents stumble. In this game, Noah doesn't look like he's had the best of draws. I see a Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot in the graveyard, indicating that he has spent quite a bit of time drawing cards, sacrificing the Puzzle Knot to draw cards, and not develop his board all that much. There's a single Dunt Operative, which is just, well, a 2-2 with no other ability at the moment. Whereas Cash Turner seems to have spent his mana on a lot of creatures, and equipment in the goggles, and he is well ahead on board at the moment.
Yeah, that Propeller Pioneer immediately picking up the Inventor's Goggles along with making a servo token. So,
and no play from Noah. Just draw a card, pass the turn. Is he just holding lands?
looks like there might be an Iron League Steed in hand for Cash Turner here, and he may get to continue his fabrication ways.
I mean, if I'm Cash here, I just play it and make it into a 3-3. That makes sense, because then it's more difficult to trade with the Dunt Operative and get in there. Not much can go wrong against just a single Dunt Operative. I definitely see a land there in Noah's hand.
We may be in for some very quick semi-finals here.
And a lot of lands. Whoa, this
Wow.
was an amazing mana flood. He may have kept a fine hand with like Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot, Dunt Operative, and just drew land. It happens. And Cash, well, he moves on to the finals. Congratulations to him. He's also been undefeated in he's been undefeated
For longer than just about anybody else in the tournament.
Yeah, he went 14-0 and then took an intentional draw in round 15. He has not lost a single match so far the entire weekend.
Cash clearly figured it out, but we're getting back to see Carlos Ramao against Raymond Perez Jr. here. This time Raymond Perez does have a play on the second turn, but Sage of Shayla's claim means that Carlos Ramao also getting threats on the board, though the way that these 2/2 drops match up, not exactly ideal for Carlos Ramao. Not going to be able to get through that 1/3 just yet.
Nope. But 3 energy, that could easily be relevant. As we saw in the first game, Carlos Ramao has plenty of creatures that are happy to use some energy.
Giant Spectacle here, meaning that Raymond Perez getting to smack in for a full 3 points of damage. Now got a 3/4 on the battlefield with Menace. Build your own Giant working out, and just a swing back for 2 from that Sage of Shayla's claim from Carlos Ramao, who does have a follow-up, and that follow-up is Renegade Freighter.
Choo-choo! All aboard!
It will take all of Carlos Ramao's creatures, admittedly only one, to crew that train. But the train attacks for a full 5, so that's a happy amount even in the face of what Raymond Perez has going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, vehicles in general are much better on the offense than on the defense, because they never contribute a blocker to the board. Well, Spark of Creativity. Any non-land spell would kill Sage of Shayla's claim, including that lowly Night Market Lookout.
Efficiency, that's what that was.
Yeah.
No need to reveal an expensive card. Well, let's just reveal a 1-drop.
Yeah, he also won't draw it on the next turn, which I'm sure that he's happy about, because Night Market Lookout on turn 1, that's okay, but when you draw it later, it's a very low impact card.
Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot, both dealing a point of damage to each player and drawing Raymond Perez a card. This is more how the red-black deck wants to be operating. Getting in there early, dealing with a couple of early threats, getting Carlos Ramao down on life early, because the power that's coming from the creatures of Carlos Ramao's deck, a little bit scary. Pima Outrider coming along, immediately getting in a train, riding it all over on attacks on Raymond Perez.
Man, that card is so good. If Thriving Rhino is not the best green common, then Pima Outrider has to be. 4/4 Trample is well above the curve, and just having the option of turning it into a 3/3 Trample and a 1/1 Servo is awesome to have. against a hand filled with, well, potentially a lot of removal spells from Ray Perez. Makes sense to diversify and get the servo rather than just one big creature.
And Ramao got that Pima Outrider super late in pack 3. His deck was already looking great, and at some point in pack 3 it was just as if everyone had given up on green and he was just able to reap every kind of reward.
Yeah, that color was super underdrafted at the table. There's a reason why Carlos Ramao is almost mono green. No one else was picking those cards.
Well, Dai Young only able to deal with a servo here and 1 energy left remaining.
Yeah, that's not a good exchange.
Yeah, 3 mana left up for the Puzzle Knot or potentially an instant, but Carlos Ramao not unhappy to see a pretty solid removal spell being used on an incidental extra creature.
Yeah, Carlos will be happy with that. He is ahead in the race at the moment, at least.
Oof. And this is the reason why auras can sometimes feel like they're second-class citizens when it comes to what you can do in Magic. Hunt the Weak here in order to potentially get the trade, and even a combat trick, Blossoming Defenses, in order to make sure that
that the Hunt the Weak would still resolve even through the Harness Lightning. Yeah, I think Carlos wouldn't have made this play without Blossoming Defense backup because, hey, Ray Perez had mana up. Carlos already saw Harness Lightning earlier, and that will do it. That was quick.
Well, I mean, I hope that Maria and Marshall enjoyed their little rest because that was a very, very short set of semifinals.
All right.
We're going to get a final going on soon. Ray Perez Jr. says, well, I started to eat my little snack and I'm going to have a chance to finish it pretty soon thereafter. That was a brutal set of semifinals, and we now have our finalists.
Yep. Carlos Ramao, 2002 world champion from Brazil, will face off against Cash Turner. Well, before the match we were talking about, is the format fast or slow? And I said, well, it can be both, at least in this semifinals and more in general in the whole top 8. The fast decks have definitely been overperforming because these games are over quickly. Pima Outrider, Renegade Freighter, they hit hard. And yeah, turn 6 or so, the game can easily be over.
Alrighty, well, do not go anywhere, guys, because next round is going to be what it's all about. Stay tuned as we're going to jump across to our final where you will have Maria and Marshall bringing you every single play.
Play with new artifacts, crew fantastic vehicles, and invent your next ingenious deck with Kaladesh this weekend. Pre-release events are happening now on Magic Online. For more information, visit mtgo.com.
Put your game to the test at a Grand Prix. These Magic celebrations are headlined by 2-day open tournaments with the best players in your region as well as top Magic pros from around the world. Find an upcoming Grand Prix near you at magic.wizards.com/Grand Prix.
Carlos's deck here. Yes.
Yep. Hello, and welcome back to coverage of GP Atlanta. Maria Bartholdi here in the booth with Marshall Sutcliffe.
Usually they tell us when we're going to go live.
Just getting prepared here
Yeah.
for an epic finals match. Well, I was down in the feature match area, Marshall, watching those semis.
Geez, did you blink?
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Very fast. It was very interesting, though, the game with Cash Turner. So what happened in game 2, he was up a game.
Okay.
He kept a 1-land hand, Marshall.
Wow, okay.
A 1-land hand. And then he gets harsh scrutinied.
Okay.
He's holding a couple of 3-drops, a 4-drop, and a 5-drop. His good 3-drop gets ripped away. 1 land. He manages to draw land, win that game. Afterwards, he says, "Hey, I'm sorry. I should have lost hand over fist. You can get your vengeance against me in Ireland."
Wow. Yeah, he is running hot. All right.
Wow.
Well, it sounds like we can take a look at our bracket here.
Yeah, let's take a look. Here we see in the finals, Cash Turner versus Carlos Ramao. Saw the game as well between Carlos and Raymond there at the end. Very interesting. It was more of a quiet game. But pretty epic blowout with a blossoming defense, really kind of putting the nail in the coffin there. And that was that interesting card, Marshall. We saw him pick that card, and we said it was a disciplined pick for him to take blossoming defense. I can't remember what it was over.
It was over just another decent threat, and I really thought that was the right pick at the time, and I think that's really going to pay off for him too, having that way to interact.
Yeah, it turned out to be what won him the game ultimately. So, just fantastic pick there. Yeah, but great games all around there down in the feature match area. Let's take a walk through what happened. So
we saw Cash Turner play against Matt Frank, and Cash ended up winning. That would have him face Noah Walker in the semifinals. Noah beat Chris Fennell.
Yes.
Big name there, and Noah kind of smashed him and got through him there in 3 games and had to face down Cash Turner, who drew some lands, it sounds like.
We saw Carlos Ramao then win. Carlos taking down that match, as well as Geddes Cooper against Raymond Perez. Raymond ultimately coming out on top. And here we have our finals, Cash Turner versus Carlos Ramao. Cash, his day job, he is kind of like a hacker, not, unprofessionally.
Like a bad hacker?
No, professionally. Like companies want to see where the weaknesses in their defenses lie.
And he finds the holes in the software.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty interesting. You can see there the championship trophy on the table, tantalizingly between both of our players here. Just sitting there.
It always ups the ante a little bit to have it there. Now, you can't see the money. We don't put that on the table, but there is $10,000 for first place here.
What a payoff for so much hard work that goes into getting into the finals here at a GP. I mean, just hours and hours of studying, of play testing. All comes down to this, Marshall.
Indeed. Carlos Ramao, you can see him with his arms crossed there. He doesn't look too nervous. This guy is an actual world champion for Magic. In 2002, he won the Magic World Championship. So he's not, he's chill. And Cash looks like he's actually pretty relaxed too.
All right, our players are ready. Let's head down to the feature match area for the finals here at GP Atlanta. Welcome to the finals here at GP Atlanta. Maria Bartholdi in the booth alongside Marshall Sutcliffe. And boy, we have a final set up for you here. Carlos Ramao versus Raymond Perez. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong name. Cash Turner.
You were just reading the graphic.
I was.
But yes, that is in fact
there
Cash Turner over there. Now, Cash is playing, he's playing black-white, and he's got kind of we would call it like a go-wide deck. He can make a bunch of tokens and kind of swarm his opponent. Now, Carlos is playing a much more vertical deck. He is playing nearly mono-green. He's on 11 forests, but he's got 2 other colors, swamps and plains, so white and black in his deck, though they're for just 1 card each. So it's kind of interesting to see how this thing turns out, because as you work your way through the deck list here, you see that Carlos is really, I think he only has 2 non-green, non-colorless cards in the deck, which are Skywhaler Shot. And he's also got an Aetherborn Marauder that he has decided to splash for, given that he has so many +1/+1 counter synergies in his green deck.
Cash now on 4 lands and only 2 Inventor's Goggles in play.
You got to figure he has a removal spell of some sort.
Yeah, there he does. Impeccable timing.
Yeah. Now you're going to hear us lower our voices a little bit. They've turned off the air conditioning here in the room, and it has gotten much, much quieter than it was. And we want to make sure that the players don't hear us.
Yeah,
here's a big player here, Maria.
Propeller Pioneer.
Yeah, which is going to pick up both copies.
Bears of the Goggles.
Hey, Four Eyes. But that makes a big flyer here. 5 toughness and 4 power, and that's going to be pretty tough for Carlos to deal with if he doesn't have that card right there.
Skywhaler Shot.
This is like the only way he has to deal with that right now.
Takes down the Pioneer, gets the Scry.
That was huge.
Yes.
Honestly, that's his only direct removal spell. The only other thing that he's got that can really directly deal with creatures is Hunt the Weak.
That's right. Oh, the Servo's going to get suited up here and get in for 3.
You look smart in those glasses.
He does.
Yeah. Servo's just down at the library.
Carlos has a deadlock trap in play with 2 energy.
Yeah, and when you're in Carlos's seat, you're pretty happy at this point. Right now, Cash hasn't really done a lot. He's now invested a lot of mana to equip up what's ultimately a pretty small creature, doesn't even have a profitable attack through the High Spire Artisan, and the Deadlock Trap is really good against equipment.
Yes, it is. Rush of Vitality saves the servo there, gains Cash some life.
And it's going to kill the High Spire Artisan to clear the way for potentially more attacks, but Cash really needs to find another threat here.
He does, Visionary Augmenter.
It's got to be an Artificer, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
So if that's the case, he can sort of spread out these goggles if he wants.
Also needs to decide what he wants to do with that Fabricate trigger.
Correct. And this is an interesting and subtle decision that Cash has to make, because the Deadlock Trap really is good against equipment. And so if he piles everything onto a Visionary Augmenter, then it just makes it a ripe target to get tapped down a couple of times. And it could be a while before he can get in for damage. Additionally, he may want to just make servos here, given that the board is currently empty. And a very weird draw for Carlos Romao with only 1 forest. He is aggressively splashing with 3 plains and 3 swamps just for those 2 cards in his deck. A couple other sources of fixing in there as well, but you would expect to see more forests from him. And that could actually hurt him. He does have multiple double green cards.
Oh, there's
in
another
his deck.
forest.
Okay, yeah, we'll probably see a Riparian Tiger here, maybe a Pima Outright or something along those lines.
And Cash did decide to give 2 counters to the Augmenter.
And he kept both copies of the goggles on the servo. So he has decided to diversify his threats, not as much as he possibly could, but in 2 sort of big chunks. And there's that Tiger.
2 more energy for Carlos.
That could be a big deal as well. Carlos does not have to use his energy on the Riparian Tiger when it attacks, and he can instead just save it up for the Deadlock Trap, which is acting as a removal spell in his green deck here.
It absolutely is, and with so many ways to make energy in Carlos's deck, that Deadlock Trap only needs 1 to lock something down.
Another interesting thing for Cash here is that he's going to want to be very precise about when and how he decides to go to attack. So we saw before he just sort of jammed his creature in the red zone, and Carlos sort of paused him because he had the Deadlock Trap.
Yep.
And you don't want to give away what your intentions are in this situation. You just want to tell your opponent, I'd like to go to attacks, and then force Carlos to decide if he'd like to use the trap or not. If you just turn both of your creatures sideways, then it kind of shows him, well, you probably have a trick of some sort, because you wouldn't just jam them right into the Tiger necessarily.
Deadlock Trap locks down the Augmenter. Both pairs of goggles move back over to the servo.
So it's a 3/5 servo, which doesn't actually block the Tiger if Carlos is happy to use some energy here.
And he
which it
does.
Looks like it's what he's done.
6/6 Trampler. Cash is going to take the hit, followed up by another Riparian Tiger.
Not surprised to see that. He's got 3 copies of Riparian Tiger, does Carlos Romao, in this deck. He is, of course, running all 3 of them. I haven't actually gone through every other deck list to see, but it felt like Carlos was the only green drafter at the table. Everything he passed came back, and that was with him taking green cards out of the packs themselves.
Yeah, he got cards passed to him like a Pima Outrider extremely late in the draft.
I'm actually just going to take a quick look while this deck, where this match comes developing here.
Cash Turner, currently the active player. See a Filigree Familiar in his hand. He's going to attack with the Augmenter. No tap from Carlos. Plays a Swamp. Here comes the Familiar. Going to gain 2 life.
Yeah, I just looked through all the deck lists we have for the top 8 in front of us, which I believe is all of them. 0 forests outside of Carlos.
Oh my gosh, he was the only green drafter.
I believe so.
What a good read by Carlos. Cash, pass the turn. End of turn, Deadlock Trap, you're familiar. draw. It is a Kujar Seed Sculptor. He's got 2 in hand currently. He's going to attack with his tigers. Not choosing to pump them up.
No, just
Servo
two
will
4/4
block one.
tramplers.
Yep.
Yeah. So Cash does have a block on one, though it won't actually kill the tiger, as it's only 3 power for Cash. But he does have 5 toughness, so he will only take 4 damage in the exchange.
Oof, Arborback Stomper.
Jeez.
Gain some life.
And this is one of the big benefits when you're the only person in a color, is that any of the really powerful uncommons that get open usually end up in your pile as well. You're kind of at the mercy at the packs at that point, but you'll gladly throw yourself to the mercy of the packs if you're just going to get all of the ones in a color for a draft.
Absolutely. 5/4 Trampler gains 5 life when it enters the battlefield. Looks like Cash is holding a copy of Built to Last. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Center artifact gets indestructible. Currently applies to 2 of Cash's creatures. Deciding, I think, if he's going to move some goggles over, which he does. Pair now on the Visionary Augmenter.
Yeah, I did just double confirm with our deck list there,
Yeah.
by the way, Maria. And yeah, he is the only player playing for us in the top 8.
That's
So,
incredible.
yeah, I'm not surprised to see it after what you and I witnessed in the draft portion. I mean, we were just falling off of our chairs with all that stuff that was coming back for Carlos. But still, even then, you always wonder, well, is there somebody else, just maybe playing it like as a secondary color? Or
Here we see Deadlock Trap blocking down the Visionary Augmenter at the end of the turn. You can take a look at the card there. Carlos down to 1 energy. We'll see if he can find a way to make more. We
does
know
have a lot of ways in his deck.
he does. Currently holding 2 Kujar Seed Sculptors, able to distribute some more counters to really keep applying pressure to Cash if he chooses. There's one of them.
Yeah, you can just make the Tigers 5 power.
There's the other.
Now he has 3 5-power tramplers there.
Wow.
Boom.
This has just got to be terrifying for Cash.
Yeah, he is just getting stomped at this point by these massive green tramplers.
And you said, Marshall, that you really favor green right now in draft. And here's a reason why.
Yeah, I just think it's the best individual color. It's still figuring out exactly how it matches up with the other colors and which pair is the best and that kind of thing. But I'll tell you what, if you just go down the list of green commons, they're great. And,
Yeah.
He's playing a bunch of them here. A couple of the Tigers and the Seed Sculptors are both 2 cards that I think are excellent. When you get up into the uncommons, you get the Arborback Stomper, which is, I think, one of the better uncommons in the set as well. And we haven't even seen the other stuff that Carlos is playing here. He does have a Pima Outrider in this deck. He's got a Bristling Hydra
Right?
in this deck, which we haven't seen either. The Elegant Edge Crafters is another common that I think is very good, or uncommon. It's very good as well.
Cash Turner using Built to Last on his double blocks there. Looks like Carlos had ordered the servo first.
Okay. So that's going to help him at least start mitigating
Took a chunk, though.
the bleed here, yeah. The Stomper no longer a threat, but 2 5/5 dragons with Cash Turner down to 6 life.
He will draw a card off the Filigree Familiar when it dies. So that's a little ray of hope.
We're keeping our voice down in the booth, by the way, for those you noticing, just because they've turned off some of the AC in the hall, and it's actually gotten quiet. We're relatively close to the players, and we want to make sure that we don't interfere with the tournament by talking about cards in hand where the players can hear us. So our producer told us to make sure we weren't too loud, so that's why we're keeping it down a little bit. Hopefully you can turn up the volume and when something big happens, we'll scream and you'll get mad at us.
Carlos taps 4. It's a hunt the week.
Carlos is in the tank about exactly what he wants to hunt down. He decides to servo.
Yeah, doesn't want Cash to draw that card.
Yeah, this could be it.
Everything coming on in.
And he's also going to tap one of the only blockers left.
That'll do it. Carlos takes game 1 here in the finals.
That was impressive. Carlos Ramao was able to stabilize a slow start from Cash Turner, and then it was just boom booms from there on out. Beef City, man. He had so much. I mean,
Did?
like if he had enough energy, he had 6-6 trample, 6-6 trample, 5-5 trample. That was before any +1/+1 counters or augmenting, just on the board. And that's really, really tough for Cash. I think this matchup is going to be very difficult for Cash Turner to beat. He really is trying to take advantage of a bunch of small creatures. Now, if he can make those small creatures quicker than Carlos can get on the battlefield and just go wider, where Carlos is like, I'll pay 5 mana to play something big.
Right.
Right. Where Cash is like, I'll pay 4 mana to play 3 small things. Then he may be able to take advantage of like play a removal spell, attack you for a bunch, and just overwhelm Carlos. But, you know, I got to say, if we get to that mid to late stage, Carlos's creatures are just so much bigger. And, you know, Cash doesn't have too much in the way of great removal. He is leaning pretty hard on some of his combat tricks like Rush of Vitality, you know, those type of things. He's got a pair of Die Young, but that doesn't kill a lot
Not
on
too good.
Carlos's side that Cash really cares about. So that's not great for him. And again, you know, I mentioned the combat tricks he's got built to last. That type of card is what he's really trying to get through with. You know, again, impeccable timing, another card that just doesn't quite do exactly what you want it to do against a deck with a bunch of big green creatures. Now, his overall power level's relatively high. He's got some kind of mediums, you know, floating around in here as well. You know, he's playing an Accomplished Automaton in this deck, which is a card that, you know, you're kind of like, fine, I guess I'll play it if I have to. But, you know, he's got some ways to sneak in damage. He's got a Key to the City.
Okay.
So if he can go wide early and then get Carlos down to like under 10 life, he may be able to just sneak through, you know, 3/6/9 or something like that to get him. Also, flying does look pretty good against Carlos. And, you know, we see a little bit of flying out of white with a Sky Swirl Harrier and a Propeller Pioneer.
Snare Thopter as well.
There you go. So, you know, it's not all downside here for Cash, but I do think that he has the worst side of this matchup, and it will be difficult for him to beat these huge creatures. You know, the other thing is that Carlos can have big creatures very early.
Yes,
like
he
he
can.
has the Dream Curve. You and I have actually been talking about this all weekend, Maria. If everything lined up perfect, right? And I don't even mean perfect, but just like good.
Yeah.
So he can start things off, and he can turn 2.
Seed Sculptor.
He can play the Kujar Seed Sculptor. He's got 2 of those, so that's not even that hard for him. Turn 3, he's got 1 Rhino, the Thriving Rhino, so he can play that. He's got 1 Pima Outrider for turn 4. He's got 3 Riparian Tigers for turn 5, and he even has...
Could play Bristling Hider on 4 if you wanted.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I like how you think, you know. And then he's got the Elegant Edgecrafters for 6.
Yep.
So, you know, that's a 2 to 6 that is going to be almost impossible for Cash to beat. Now, again, it's not likely that Carlos is going to be able to just chain all of those together. But, hey, take 2 of those out of the mix, and it still looks
fine.
pretty good, yeah. And as you mentioned, he also has upgrades at some of those ones, including that Bristling Hydra.
Yep. Absolutely. Cash running a Kambal console of allocation, but not a whole lot of spells to really, from Carlos to really make use of that card.
Not a lot, you're right. Again, Carlos deciding to splash for an Aetherborn Marauder, which is a pretty aggressive splash. I mean, he's running 3 swamps in his deck just for that 1 black card.
He is, yeah.
I'm curious to see if he ends up keeping that in. That seems a little ambitious to me. Like, I get it with the Skywhaler shot because that
Yeah,
card's
I
going to kill
understand that.
something relevant most of the time, but the Aetherborn